Hey everyone, this is Dan with True North Motos. Today we're going to be doing an install video on a 2024 KTM 300 XCW. This will also apply to the XCFW models. Basically any non-street legal 2024 KTM that comes with a headlight and a taillight. This is what it's going to look like when you get your kit in the mail. So we're going to jump in and get this thing installed. So this is where we need to disassemble the bike to install the Dual Sport Kit. So your front headlight mast needs to come off. On the 24 models, there's now 2 bolts. There's no rubber straps. 8mm will get those off. The connector right here is going to be hanging right there. There's a tab on the bottom of the connector that you need to depress to pull the connector apart for your headlight. You're going to need to take your tank off. That is going to take an 8mm as well. You're going to undo your fuel line right there. It's going to be down right here. You're going to undo this connector right here for your fuel pump. Make sure you do not pull too hard on this tab, they break off. So just enough to clear the clip, pull the tab off. You'll have your seat bolt, obviously that's going to be off before the tank. Then you'll have 2 tank bolts in the front. When you're taking this tank off, you need to spread these bottom parts of the shrouds to get over the top part of your subframe. Because you can see there's 2 tabs right there that hold that on. In the back, you're going to need a 6mm and an 8mm. You're going to remove the 2 8mm bolts right here on your under fender. You're going to remove the 6mm bolts. Are going to be right here and there. And then it now has 3 6mm bolts for the plastic tabs that come off your rear fender. In the back, this will loosen down. For the rear fender, there's 2 bolts that live right up here. You're going to need to undo those, clip the zip tie that's right there holding the wiring in the rear fender, and then this will just pop up and pull off the back of the bike. So that is it for disassembly. Now we will jump into installing the harness. Alright, so now on the front of the bike, we're going to do the headlight adapter harness and switch install. I've already got the switch on here. You need to loosen up your clutch master cylinder, move it to the inside, leave it somewhat loose. Get your switch mounted, put your hand on the bar, get it to where it's in a good spot. The ergonomics feel good on it. Tighten it up. It's a 4mm Allen and a 6mm socket. And then cut the zip tie through your handguard if you're running stock handguards. If not, just secure the wires along the master cylinder here, route them down, undo this clip and route the wires in, and we'll leave them there right now until we hook up your headlight adapter harness. Your headlight adapter harness is going to have a spot for the switch here. This is going to plug into the factory harness here, and this is going to be your new headlight plug right here. These 2 are accessory power if you want to run an SAE adapter that we sell or a dual USB charger for maps, so you can mount your phone or whatever you use for a GPS up top. These are your horn leads. So we're going to go ahead and get this installed now. Okay, so now we got this dielectric greased. We've secured it, zip tied up. This is your horn wires. We're going to end up mounting the horn down on the radiator. I'll show you that later once we run the turn signal harness up here. What we're looking at now is an optional part of the kit. And what this is a kill switch jumper wire. This is going to allow you to use the kill switch over here as well as over here. You do not have to install this. You can just use the kill switch on the side if you'd like. If you'd like both of them to work, what we're going to do is take apart your posi tap. This is the wire from your start-stop switch. You're looking for the white wire with a gray stripe. Now, you feed the gray over the wire, like so. And then you screw in the red part to it, just like that. Now you're going to take this wire, and we can feed it back through there. We'll probably put a new zip tie on this, but it's going to plug in to your yellow with a black stripe off your Euro switch. So just kind of spin these when you put them together to get the insulators to go over each other, and then you'll feel a click in there once it gets sealed. And then we'll just tuck that back in there with the new zip tie once we get everything finished organized up front. So that's it for the front at this moment. We're going to jump into now routing the turn signal harness on the bike, and we'll end up jumping back up here to finish at the front for plugging everything else in. Okay, so this is the turn signal harness that we're going to install on the bike now. In the back, you're going to have the plug that's going to go into your OEM taillight plug where you unplug the light from. This is going to be your new taillight plug and your turn signal connectors. If you're using our all-in-one taillight, which we'll go and install on a different section of the video, that's where this is going to plug in. This is your rear brake pressure switch. So we're going to route that down into here in front of your battery. The harness is going to come under your ECU, along the main loom, through the wire guide, and then you'll have all your stuff up front. That is the lower portion of your CEV or Euro switch. These are your front turn signal connectors. The red is right. Red is right. That's your right signal. Purple is left. So when you see those wires, that right there is going to be your flasher relay. So first thing I'm going to do to start this, I'm going to put a little dielectric grease on the OEM harness end and plug in your first connector. It'll snap down in and live right there, just like that. The other ones are going to come down and live in this hole right here. And then we're going to pop the ECU up off of its locating tabs and just kind of out of the way. Now I'm going to cut some zip ties here and here, route this harness, and we'll come back and show you a finished install. Okay, so now we've routed our turn signal harness. We're just going to go over this routing. So we dielectric greased and plugged the harness into the stock OEM harness where the taillight plug was. These are left right now until we put our rear light and turn signals on. Under here, the harness is going to route down. This is one of the zip ties you cut. There's a little holder for the zip tie down here. You're going to re-zip tie the harness. It runs next to the main harness. Up, another little zip tie holder here. You're going to zip tie it to the main harness. This guy will pop over that. Runs up. Take a T20. You don't have to take this bolt all the way out, just enough to pop the plastic out of the frame. Route your harness up there, and then we're going to organize it behind here, which when we put the headlight and the front turn signals back on, you'll see how I organize everything up there. So that is the routing. Oh, one more thing, sorry. Your rear brake pressure switch plug-in is going to come down the right side, go under your CAN bus controller, down in this hole by the upper shock bolt by your starter solenoid. Drop down in front. You don't want it in this hole where the tank's going to sit and everything. It will clog that up. So that is your routing for the turn signal harness. All right, so now we're going to be installing your rear brake pressure switch. To do this, you're going to have to pop your frame guard off. It's one 8mm bolt. Cut the two zip ties. You pull it out, and there's two slats like that clip into the bottom of this fender. So you'll slide it forward and down, get it out of the way. Take a 12mm wrench. Break your banjo bolt free. Take your banjo bolt. This bike's brand new, so I'm going to reuse his copper washers because it's not a big deal. The kit comes with 2 new copper washers if you want to put new ones on and it's an older bike. So you're going to take your new brake pressure switch, slide that cap back a little bit so you can get the wire up while you're spinning it. Got a bolt or a copper washer on top and on bottom, and we're going to start threading this in. Spinning the wire while you do it. And one thing I didn't notice or note was this bike is clean. If this is dirty, make sure you use some brake clean or something, clean all the dirt up from around here. So now that we got it finger tight, 14 millimeter wrench goes over this whole thing, fits on there. So what we're gonna do is put just a little bit of pressure. Now I saw some fluid move. Now tighten this up to snug, and now your rear brake won't need to be bled. So now I'm going to hold this brake line so it doesn't spin too far and it's not contacting anything, and give this a final torque. Now that we've done that, you can slide your wrench off like so. Spin your boot and slide it back down on top of the switch, just like that. This is going to get routed and zip tied to your brake line right there, and come up and plug into that connector. That way it's free from hitting the exhaust or anything else. Put a dab of dielectric grease on this connector before you plug it in. Then you're going to reinstall your frame guard and you're good to go. Okay, so now we're going to install our all-in-one rear tail light. It's going to come with these 3D printed spacers, the long mounting bolt, the washer, and a nylock nut, and then your light. So you're going to put the spacer on here. This is going to go through the light, like that, through the spacer, and then the washer and the nylock are going to go on the back side of the under fender. So I'm going to go ahead and get this installed, and then we'll put it on the bike. Okay, so now we bolted on the light with the included 3D spacers. You don't need to over tighten these. This is small hardware and it's a nylock nut, so just go until it's snug and it's sitting in there. You can see it fits nicely under the rear fender. You're gonna have your license plate light, your turn signals, brake light, and running light all integrated into one. And I want to make sure not to pinch your wire under here. I start these zip ties on the top, but I don't zip tie them down all tight until I get the wire ran all the way through. So you have 6 millimeter bolts here and here, the 3 we talked about when we disassembled, and then the 8 millimeter bolts on the bottom. And then you have the 2 up here on the top. Your wire is going to route in, and all your plugins. Okay, so this is the wiring coming in off the taillight. Like I said, leave these loose till you get everything routed. Then you can tighten down your zip ties. Coming from the taillight, this is brown and green. It's going to go into purple and red. Those are your turn signals. From the taillight, this is yellow, blue, and black. It's going to go into white, green, and black on your turn signal harness. That's your running light, brake light, license plate light function. Over here is the plug we did earlier with the existing taillight plug on the bike's OEM harness, and your turn signal harness plugging into that. Now we're going to be installing the front fork wrap turn signals. You might have chose different turn signals like the hand shield ones, which is just drilling a hole anywhere in the plastic hand guards and plugging in, or the ones that bolt directly into the headlight mask. This customer wants fork wrap, so that's what we're going to use on this bike. Flexible, 3D printed mount. Your wire is going to go on the inside, so there is a left and right. The bolt's going to be coming from the outside. So the new triples have a nice hole for the wire to run through on this guide. So we'll feed this up. Start with your red wire for daytime running lights. And then it's kind of tight in here, so get the yellow wire in there, feed it up just like that. And now we'll spread this around the fork, like so. And then while you're feeding it up to right there, grab my tool. Now we can tighten up this bolt in the back. It is a plastic screw, so you don't got to go crazy. But there we go. Super easy to remove. You can twist them to where you kind of want it. But I like that routing because your wire guide hole here is directly in there. And then you'll have full visibility across. These have a bright white daytime running light and a sequential turn signal. So that's how we're going to do that side. I'm going to go ahead and do the other side, and then we'll jump back in and show you how to plug them in. Okay, so this is only going to apply if you're running fork wraps and you want to use your daytime running light function. So what we're doing is these red wires are the daytime running light power wires. The red wire for your auxiliary power is where you want to put the gray part like this of the posi tap. You're going to strip back a section here of the red wires, and you're going to put those together, twist them together, and I like to, because it's a small gauge wire, fold it over in half like that. We'll leave that there for a second. Now we're going to thread on the other posi tap onto the gray. I'll give you an eye at what I'm doing here. So you tighten that down. It's going to look like that when you're done. Now we're going to unthread the red cap from the other end, like so. You can see there's a little point down in there. That's your contact. So now we're going to take these red wires. There's your cap. You're going to feed those through so you see them come through like that. And we're going to put it in there to where it hits that contact and thread the cap down. Now the wires are in there. That's your daytime running light. You do not have to do this, but it's a cool option on these lights. Now for the rest of this, I'm going to bring those up there. And then remember what we talked about before? Turn signal harness. The red wire is your right signal. So look where you're coming from there. We're going to plug that in. These are sealed connectors, so there's no need for any dielectric grease. There's your left plugged in. And then we're going to tuck all that stuff up and keep it nice and tidy. I'm going to leave the turn signal wires kind of loose and put these up there like that. The headlight is going to want to sit in between those. It's pretty tight when you're putting that back there. So we're going to leave that like that. I'll zip tie these up with the rest of the stuff. You can see the organization up here now that we're back up front. I got the relay flasher zip tied through there, holding it, and it wedges in between the stock 6-pin connector. All the other wiring you want to keep up as high as possible because the light, the back of the light is pretty big, and it's hard to get the light on if you shove everything down in this zone. So take your time, organize this area. You know, these I'm going to tuck up like that. That's your headlight plug. So we'll leave all that like that and keep it nice and secured behind the headlight shroud. So that's it for the front signals and pretty much everything else on this bike. We're going to go through now, reassemble the bike, and do a functions test. All right, so we have reassembled the bike. The Dual Sport Kit is installed. Only thing I didn't show so far is your horn, which is going to mount to the upper radiator shroud bolt right here. The wires will tuck along the back wires right before your radiator and drop down. So that is all done. Now we're going to do a test functions. All right, now we're going to test our functions. So we'll start the bike up. So high, low. You got your daytime running lights. Left signal. Right signal. Horn. And we can look at the back of the bike here in a second. And in the back, this is our all-in-one taillight. So we'll start her up. Right signal. Left signal. And your rear brake light. And you have your built-in license plate light as well. Blinker.